Tonight, one of the former leaders of the Republican Party is unloading on the indisputable current one. In a new interview, the former House Speaker Paul Ryan called Donald Trump unfit for office and is squarely blaming him for Republican losses up and down the ballot.
He's cost us a lot of seats. I could probably spend some time and come up with the numbers. He cost us the Senate twice. He cost us the House because he is nominated. He is pushing through the primaries people who cannot win general elections, but who pledge fealty to him. That's not a good way to build and grow a party.
That relationship still as icy as ever. We're also learning that another relationship may be on the verge of thawing out. Donald Trump and Senator Mitch McConnell will share the same air for the first time in nearly 4 years this week, after McConnell confirmed to CNN today that he will be at that meeting Trump is having with Senate Republicans in Washington on Thursday. Now, this is so notable because Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell have not spoken since December of 2020. It was shortly before the January 6th attack on the Capitol, for which McConnell, as we all remember in that floor speech, said Trump was practically and morally responsible for what happened. Then, of course, 4 years later, in a remarkable turnaround, McConnell announced in March that he will be voting for Donald Trump come November. My source on all of this tonight is former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who served on the January 6th Congressional Committee. And Congressman, just first off, what do you make of Trump's upcoming meeting with Senate Republicans, but also the fact that we don't know if they'll actually interact? It's not that big of a crowd, but that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell will be around each other for the first time in 4 years.
Well, obviously, the meeting itself isn't surprising. Mitch McConnell, meeting with Trump really isn't surprising. He's a political animal at his core. I mean, he does some honorable things like, the support for Ukraine and stuff like that. But he's made it clear from the very beginning that he will support the Republican nominee. I wish he wouldn't because, obviously, he could stay away. He could not say anything at all. And it's pretty obvious he's not going to be there in a number of years. So why not go out with a legacy? So it's too bad. But like I said, I'm not surprised at all.
Well, it's essentially the opposite of what we were hearing from Paul Ryan. He said he's not voting for Trump. He's going to write someone in. He did that in 2020, so it's not a surprise. But this is what he said to Neil Cavuto about why he can't bring himself to vote for Donald Trump.
I think it really is just character at the end of the day. And the fact that if you're willing to put yourself above the Constitution, an oath you swear when you take office, in federal office, whether it's president or a member of Congress, you swear an oath to the Constitution. And if you're willing to suborn it to yourself, I think that makes you unfit for office.
Why do you think that other Republicans, more Republicans who feel the same way Paul Ryan does, don't say it?
I don't know, and I wish they did. Look, there's a reality that members of Congress and former members of Congress particularly, or ones that are leaving, don't want to make the party mad because they can go make a bunch of money lobbying after that. And so a lot of them stay quiet, which is why people ask me, how come somebody that's leaving stays quiet? I'm like that. You don't want to take off the party. I'm very proud of Paul Ryan for saying it because he could have stayed silent. He could have not said anything, but he made a very clear, concise case for why he's unqualified. And on top, the point about the Constitution, look, Caitlin, when I swore into Congress, I did not take an oath to my district. I didn't take an oath to the 700,000 people I represented. I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States. That is the most important thing. More than any issue, more than any tax rate, the most important thing is, are we going to uphold these basic principles? Because democracy can't survive if you don't. So I think Paul, the speaker, made a very compelling case. He did it in front of an audience that didn't want to hear that. And I hope he says it more.
You talk about people, though, who are political animals and that are interested in keeping their jobs on Capitol Hill. I think they look at this in a cynical way and say, okay, well, if I say what Paul Ryan's out there saying, look at Paul Ryan. He's no longer in Washington. Yeah. He is no longer the House Speaker. He left. He's out. And so why would I take that route if that's going to portend my fate?
Yeah, and look, it's true. You will be kicked out. The question is of conscience. You know, what is most important to you? A title, an identity? I mean, those are powerful things, or your conscience, or your country, or the legacy that you leave. And so these people look at him, they'll look at, Liz Cheney and I. And this is what a cult does, by the way. It takes a few people that are out of line, that don't swear fealty to the leader. They kick them out. They politically execute them, and it sends a message to everybody else: don't get out of line. And that's why over the last 8 years, we've seen increasing, not just loyalty to Trump, but increasingly members of Congress, for instance, unwilling to go outside, criticize him for anything, unwilling to go outside of whatever his daily orthodoxy is, which has nothing to do with conservatism. And look, it's really just a question of conscience.
I'm glad you said that about conservatism, because this is what Paul Ryan's essential take was on what Trump has done to the Republican Party. Obviously, you're a lifelong Republican. This is what he said also today.
I'm a conservative Republican. He's a populist. He's not a conservative. I want to see someone who has fidelity to principles. I would prefer a party that is based on principles, not personality or populism. This populism is untethered to principles.
But is that the future of the Republican Party? I mean, that is the direction it seems to be moving in more and more.
Look, it depends how far in the future. I think in a year, yeah, it's still that party. I think if you fast forward 10 years, I believe there's not going to be a person on this planet alive that will ever admit they supported Donald Trump. Because I think, look, if he loses, obviously he's a loser once again. And that has a way of basically waking people up in a movement or in a political party. Even if he wins, he's president for 4 years. Very few presidents come out of that more popular than they went in. America will be exhausted of him. And I think the Republican Party will start to eat him up by the end of that. That's my optimistic view. But then somebody else could come along and run that same, formula. And so who knows? But this is why people like Paul Ryan speaking out, talking about being a conservative, but now being called a rhino, not because of what he believes, but because he's not pledging allegiance to a man. Instead, he pledges allegiance to a constitution.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you.